Okay. Okay. So Shavuot Tov, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, but your screen is, you haven't shared your screen if that's what you wanted to do.
Right here. I'm going to do that now.
Yep.
Okay. Here we go. Okay. You guys can see the screen now.
Yep.
Okay. Great. So I'll just remind us if we find ourselves getting cut off because of the time limit, then everyone is welcome. You just click right back into the link, and we'll be able to continue learning together. Okay. Okay, so we are in chapter 8 of Judges. Last week we did a bit of a recap. We did kind of like a big picture recap, both of basically the whole process we went through in the book of Joshua, which is like the epilogue or the kind of the ending story of the 5 books. And then we spoke a little bit about the book of Judges. We talked about the cycles. We saw a little bit, we looked at the map a little bit to get a sense of the different areas. We talked about the fact that even though the cycle repeats itself, it's each time it's slightly different. And we reminded ourselves that that one of the things that was introduced, one of the new elements was introduced into the cycle of Gidon, is the fact that if until Gidon, all of the judges seemed to deliver a military victory and there was no spiritual or moral side to it, now it seems that there's an expectation that while they're being saved militarily and economically, that coupled with that is also they're actually being told, and the direct messages being given to them that this is not just that there's something deeper going on here, and a certain message that they need to understand, parallel to the military and economic downfalls and salvations. Okay, and then we saw this in the previous chapter with Gidon, the way he was chosen, the fact that he destroyed he publicly opposed the idol worship in his village, the fact that he was instructed not to go to war with a large force, rather just only with a small force, and that force should be from people who have proven themselves as not being accustomed to idol worship, and this was supposed to send a very clear message that it is God who's behind the salvation, and therefore this is a reminder to the Jewish people, children of Israel, that all of this is part of reinforcing the relationship with God, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's what we saw last week. We tied it in a little bit to Yom Ha'atzmaut as well, and now we're back to our chapter. Just before we jump into the chapter again, any comments, questions, observations? No. Okay. So we're going to go ahead. Let me just make sure that we're not missing anyone. Okay. No one has joined us. No one else has joined in yet. Okay. Okay. So let's. Yeah. Sorry. No. Okay. So we're going to go ahead. Okay. So we saw at the end of chapter 7, we saw that. Here we do have someone else joining us. Yeah, I think Sivya is joining us. Yeah. Okay. Hello, Sivya. Welcome. We're just about to start reading the chapter. So we saw at the end of chapter 7 that after the 300 soldiers, they went and basically charged the Midianite camp. The Midianite army starts fighting each other, start killing each other, and they start fleeing. Only after that initial victory, then Gidon sends out word and has the neighboring tribes join in and follow in pursuit. And we see specifically the tribe of Ephraim, they go and they, what's the word we used last week? They flank. They flank the Midianite force. They capture the area the crossing of the Jordan, and they're able to basically they're basically able to sandwich the Midianite force, and they capture the two generals of Midian, right? So we'll run through the first three verses again, as we saw them last week. And the men of Ephraim said to him, meaning said to Gideon, why did you do that to us, not calling us when you went to fight the Midianites? And they rebuked him severely. We said that in Hebrew it's actually a stronger word. It says they fought against him, okay, or they fought with him severely. But he answered them after all, what have I accomplished compared to you? Why, Ephraim's gleanings are better than Abiezer's vintage, meaning that you, as he goes on to explain, God has delivered the Midianite generals, Oreb and Zev, into your hands. And what was I able to do compared to you? And when he spoke in this fashion, their anger against him abated. So he said, this seems to have a very wise way in which to approach them, in which to calm them down. Of course, this is not true. Of course, he's overstating their accomplishment and understating his own accomplishment. But we see that at the end of the day, this is able to calm them. This seems to be a wise way to go about it. And that this challenge is removed. We will visit it again soon. But yes, Ron.
Why wouldn't he be more direct in terms of what God wants, which is, first of all, that God said I should pick 300 people, and because of idol worshiping, and there's people in your community that are idol worshiping, that's why you weren't picked. Like, call a spade a spade. Being a diplomat doesn't deal with the core issue that these people have been idol worshiping. So they would continue to be idol worshipers, especially given that he's reinforcing them. Look, you did really well, so keep doing what you're doing, as opposed to, no, God was cautioning, this was a message to you, so take the message up rather than back away.
Right. So I agree with you. It's a good question. I can think of two opposite answers to the question. One is that despite what I said beforehand, God didn't actually command him to educate them, okay, to preach to them. God said, when the angel came to him in chapter 7 and gave him the task, the task was very explicit. He says to him, here, if I go back a little bit, sorry, this is going to be zipping through your screen. If you in chapter 6, sorry, here, when the angel comes to him, just a second, here. So if you look in chapter 6, if you guys can see over here, you see in where I'm circling verse 14. Can you see it?
Yep.
Yeah. So he says, Hashem turned to him, or the Lord, the angel, turned to him and said, go in this strength of yours and deliver Israel from the Midianites. I herewith make you my messenger. Meaning the official task he was given was to militarily, right, it was because of his strength, and to deliver them from the Midianites. It was a military appointment, so to say. Okay, and then he goes on to say, the Lord replied, I will be with you, and you shall defeat Midianite to a man. And then later on, when God commands him of how many people, he says, no, you take down the amount of people, decrease the number, and this is the test. And then God says, it seems to be, if I go in chapter 7, when he's kind of going through he's cutting down on the amount of people, he doesn't tell Gideon at any point to deliver a message to the people, right? He says here in verse 7 over here, then the Lord said to Gideon, I will deliver you, and I will put Midian into your hands to the 300 lapis, let the rest of the troops go home. And then he goes on to say, sorry, where is it? A little bit beforehand. Sorry. Okay, I can't find it right now, but basically, we don't find anywhere that his official task, that he is at any point told, it is your job to educate them. It sounds as if some of the verses that we saw, and I don't want to waste our time now looking for each verse, but it seems like Hashem expects the people to get this on their own. Meaning they will see that, oh, look, 300 people on their own beat an entire army. Whoa, we should reflect on this and understand, why is it that 20,000 people were sent back and only 300 people? And who were the 300 people? Now, one could argue, well, wouldn't it be more significant if Gidon said to them, hey, pay attention, see what's going on here? But we have to understand the process here. Gidon was not, and we'll get to this, this is a very important point. Gidon was not, meaning the nation, he is not the official leader of the nation. Every single one, we have to change our mindset, okay? They've been in the land now for a couple hundred years already, okay? I don't know exactly, about 200 years. The last time they had a leader who was actually a national leader was Joshua. That was a couple hundred years ago. They have been living for the last 200 years or so, they have been living as individual tribes. They have not been, there was very little, if anything, that created a sense of a one unified nation. They're dispersed in the land in different areas. What we saw is that different tribes seem to have challenges because of their neighboring enemies. But those were all local challenges. Maybe one tribe, maybe two or three tribes. Okay, but for instance, the tribe of Judah, that's all the way in the southern part of Israel, or Shimon, that's in the southern part of Israel, most of the things that have been going on up until now in the book of Judges is up in the north, or in the northern east part kind of Israel, and had and didn't impact and barely impacted them. So they were not called upon to send troops. They did not feel the difficulty of these nations putting attacks or coming in and invading and going out. Up until now, these were very local things, and therefore it might not have even been seen by people as like, oh look, this is a national crisis. This is something that's happening to the entire people. There wasn't as much at this point a sense of an entire people. So yes, there was a mishkan. Okay, there was a tabernacle that was located in one place, but people at this point were still permitted to sacrifice at home. People were permitted, if they wanted to do a sacrifice, or they were fulfilling the obligation of a sacrifice, of any sacrifice that they're obligated to make, they could do that in their backyard. They did not have to go to the tabernacle. There was no Bet Mikdash. There was no king. There was no one, and even these judges that God brings about, they did not create a capital. They did not create a central judicial system. These are important points because we're going to see how this develops throughout the book. And Gidon was given a very specific mandate: go and save the people from the Midianites. And then he's told, and then when he goes and he gathers an army, he's told, no, I don't want so many soldiers because I want it to be clear that God was involved. He was not told, like Moshe was told, go tell the people, so, 1, 2, 3. Gideon was not told, as Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel was, go tell the people, so says God, you have sinned, repent. He was not given this message. He was chosen as now. So that's my first answer. Now, I think a logical question here, Ron, would be, but okay, even if Gideon was not tasked with the job of go tell the people, wouldn't you expect him, why wouldn't he do that on his own, right? He knows. God is sharing with Gideon what he's trying to do, right? Gideon does know what the deeper meaning is here. So why doesn't he say listen, let me explain to you why I didn't call you. Let me explain to you why why I sent people home, because there's something deeper here. So I don't, I'm not 100% sure. I think it could be because he doesn't see it as his role. He doesn't see himself as having that mandate. We see earlier on in chapter 6, he sees himself as being a very simple person. He speaks about himself. This, I think, is important to see because it connects to what we're going to see later on in the chapter. Here, so we see in chapter 6, when the angel tells him, I want you to save the Jewish people. Here, he says in verse 15, he said to him, this is what Gideon responds to the angel. Please, my Lord, how can I deliver Israel? Why, my clan is the humblest in Menashe, and I am the youngest in my father's household. Gideon sees himself as being a very simple, lowly person. And we saw this also repeated in the following chapters when after God tells him, I'll be with you, and Gideon asks for a sign. I want to make sure, he did the whole thing with the dew and the cotton. He asked him for 2 signs, for 3 different signs. He seems to be very insecure, also about what's happening in general, but also about his role and his merit, whether he's worth anything. I think when he says, it very much could be when he's and Menashe is a lowly tribe. Menashe is considered to be a lowly tribe. So it could be a reflection. Sorry, yes, go ahead, Ron.
He's making up an answer. Then everything you're saying, his answer should have been, I just followed God's orders. Like he's making up an answer that God didn't tell him to say, which is, what did I do? You got the heads of the Midianites. He's making that story up. The one that God told him he could have just said, which to me makes sense, is I just followed God's orders. Period. That would be a reasonable statement, not what he said.
Right. He's saying he's placating them. He's placating them and making them feel too good about themselves. Whereas either this could be an opportunity, this could be a teaching moment, or at least
I agree. I got what you're. He's not there to be a teacher, but he can tell the truth.
Right.
The truth is.
Right.
I just follow God's orders.
So again, it could be that this is a failure of his. It could be that this is a failure of his, and we'll see. If until now in the previous chapters it seems to me that the text seems to be dropping us all these hints of similarities between Gideon and Moshe, between Gideon and Yosef. We saw a few. Of Abraham. We saw a few similarities, both as far as the storyline, but also phrases. It seemed very reminiscent of other important figures that seem to put Gideon on a very high pedestal. We'll see this chapter. We'll see this depth starting to change. But I'm saying, Ron, it very much could be that this is a failure of his. Okay, and if it is, it will not be the first one we see in this chapter. That have been said, there is one more important point, because if we continue reading, and it says, the battle is not over. Okay, the story of the battle is not over. Let's continue reading. And that also might be part of the thing, that Gideon might be say, listen, we're in the middle of a battle, and he doesn't want to start having to get into a whole political argument in the middle of a battle. But I like that answer less, even though I think it might be correct. I like that answer less because it seems to be too easy of an answer. It seems to avoid, I think the question is too good of a question to just come say, well, he's too busy. But the truth is they are still in the middle of a campaign. So let's continue reading. Gideon came to the Jordan and crossed it. The 300 men with him were famished, but still in pursuit. I'm going to pause here just for a second, because I do want to bring up the map, because this is important. The same map. Wait, just 1 second. I'm going to open up a new tab here. I apologize. We're having some difficulty here. Here, I'll do it over here. Sorry. Here. I want us to understand, because we're going to be talking about 2 cities here, and there's going to be a very dramatic event, and it is important this is actually a fantastic website. that lets you choose any chapter, and it's also, this exists in English and in Hebrew. Here, it's a fantastic tool to choose. You can choose any chapter in the entire Bible, in the entire Tanakh, and ask it to show you the maps, both regular maps or a satellite map of the chapter that's being discussed. It's a fantastic, fantastic tool. Can you guys see what I'm doing here? So you can see this tool?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Judges, and I'm going to go to chapter 8. And sorry, now I'm going to enlarge it a little bit. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to see this just in a moment. We'll see the areas that we're talking about. Okay. Now we're going to go back to the chapter. Okay, we are in verse 4. Okay, everyone with us?
Yes.
Sorry, Sylvia, I don't see you. Okay, Sylvia, you could hear us, hopefully? Yeah, okay, good, okay. Okay, so Gidon came to the Jordan and crossed it. The 300 men with him were famished, but still in pursuit. So this is interesting, right? That the pursuit, he's continuing the pursuit, but just with the 300 men. He said to the people of Sukkot, please give some loaves of bread to the men who are following me, for they are famished, and I am pursuing Zevach and Salmonah, the kings of Midian. But the officials of Sukkot replied, is Zevach and Salmonah already in your hands, that we should give bread to your troops? I swear, declared Gidon, when Hashem delivers Zevach and Salmonah into my hands, I'll thresh your bodies upon desert thorns and briars. From there he went up to Pnuel and made the same request of them. But the people of Pnuel gave him the same reply as the people of Sukkot. So he also threatened the people of Pnuel, when I come back safe, I'll tear down this tower. Okay, let's pause here for a moment. Thoughts, observations, questions. Let me just give a sense of where we're talking about, okay? So, here, let's get a bit of a sense of where we are, okay? So, you guys can see Ofra over here. Just a second, right? Ofra, you guys see it over here? Ofra over here, this is the hometown of Gidon. This is Gidon's hometown. Okay. Now, if we go down over here, we're talking about. You see that the Dead Sea is down over here, and we go up here. This over here is the Jordan River. You guys can see it. Yeah. Okay. So this is the Jordan River, and over here we have Sukkot and Penuel. You guys see them?
Yes.
Okay, just for the heck of it, I'm gonna switch now to satellite so you see how cool it is. Get to see this great tool. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Okay, so you could actually see here the topography, because some chapters and doing Zoom class enables us to do something that we weren't able to do previously, and some battles, for instance, we might actually want to go look. Using this map, you can go deeper in and look at topography and understand some of the. Okay, so he is fleeing. He is chasing them over here. Okay, so if I were to do like this, right? He is basically chasing them like this. Okay, this is the direction that he seems to be chasing them in. It might actually be more in an angle like this. I'm not exactly sure, but this is more or less the direction. Okay. Okay. So he goes by Sukkot, and he goes by Sukkot. He asks them for bread. He has 300 people who have been doing battle for a day, and they're still the same 300 people. They're still chasing the army. They've obviously traveled a very, very big distance. We're talking about probably, if I remember correctly, about at least 40 kilometers. So it's quite a distance. And he asked them for bread, and both cities say no. Thoughts, questions?
Isn't it Reuven?
I'm sorry?
Isn't it Reuven territory?
Yes, I think so. It makes sense. You know what? Let me just hold on for just a few seconds. Let me double check. Just a second. While I'm checking, Sylvia, you wanted to say something?
Oh, I just had a question. In Pasuk Dalet, the Hebrew says ayefim, which is tired, yet the English translation says famished, which is hungry.
Let's see. You're right. Yeah, you're right. So also in verse 5, it says, he said to the people of Sukkot, please give some loaves of bread to the men who are following me, for they are famished, you're right. It's a bad translation. My guess is it's based on one of the commentators. It tries to explain that ayef is not just, meaning one of the things, obviously, I guess, that makes you tired is the fact that you haven't eaten. But you're right, this is definitely not a literal translation. This is a translation which is an interpretation.
Because I guess they're trying to make the story make sense. Because if they're tired, why do they need bread? They need a bed, actually, to rest.
Well, no, okay, I guess. Okay, in 10 minutes we'll reconnect. But yes, Galia, you are correct. The area, yes, those cities are in the area which is the inheritance of the tribe of Reuven. Correct. You're right. So excellent observation.
So why they don't give them bread?
Okay, well, it says, why don't they give them bread? Because they're nervous that Gidon and his army, 300 people, that Gidon and his people will not actually succeed in fully defeating the Midianites. And if they assist the rebels, right? If they assist Gidon and his army, it's not an army, it's 200 people. If they assist them, then they're afraid of the retribution that would happen to them from the Midianites. But what does this indicate? If we kind of go back a little bit to Ron, what you were talking about before, maybe, what does this indicate about the state of mind or the situation or the tribes or of the nation? There's no solidarity. Zero solidarity. You have, meaning Reuven, meaning the city, the people of the city of Sukkot and Pnuel are treating this whole thing as if it has nothing to do with them. Meaning it's almost as if, meaning they're like, we're not going to, they're almost treating Gidon and his forces like a bunch of rebels. And why? I'm not going to help the rebels against the, I'm afraid of the people who actually are in control here, and the really scary force, and the fact that my brothers, not my brothers, my cousins, it's not even my cousins, it's my distant cousins. Fine, our great grandfathers were brothers. But I've been living on this side of the Jordan for the last 150 years, and you've been living in the. It's not as if they know who Gidon is. This is not like Moshe, Rabbeinu, or Joshua coming to them and saying, hey, give the troops food. It's like, they don't know who Gidon is. Gidon is some guy. It's not as if messengers have gone throughout all of Israel. There's no prophet who's accepted by everyone. There's no centralized, forget about centralized government. It's just a bunch of tribes. And this tribe of where Sukkot and Pnuel are even on the other side of the Jordan. If you guys remember, at the end of the book of Joshua, we had this very, very dramatic event where when the 2.5 tribes were going to return to the eastern side of the Jordan River, and they built an altar. And there was almost a war between the tribes of the 9.5 tribes and the 2.5 tribes. You guys remember this towards the end of the book? And the tribes in the east said, because we're afraid that one day your children will say to our children that we have nothing to do with each other, that you are not our brothers. So we're making this altar here to make a covenant here that both of us recognize that we are part of the same people. But we see here that that fear that they had back then, it's happening. You have here two cities that's saying, no, we're not gonna help our brothers against the foreign oppressor because we don't trust that he'll actually be able to carry it out, and we're not going to take the risk. It just is it's a very good example or expression to how far or how low the situation has become. Forget about religiously. Of course, we've seen already that they keep on going back to idol worship, right? We discussed last week at length. But also from as far as a sense of solidarity in the sense of whether there is still a concept of a one nation, that seems to have been significantly lost. Okay, this is okay, and it's interesting to see Gideon's response to them, and we'll see it's going to get a lot more dramatic. Okay, anything to comment? Any questions, comments?
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it just bothers me. It's from the beginning of entering to Eretz Israel, we have nation divided by Gola and people who live in Eretz Israel.
Well,
it's just the beginning, how God gives permission to this to happen.
Well, officially, the eastern side of the Jordan River is not Gola, is not Galut. It is not. It is officially, it is part of the Promised Land. It is part of, meaning that's something that we have to switch in our own minds. That a few days ago we celebrated. We should have celebrated 100 years since the San Remo agreements, which was after World War I. France and England basically divided up the Middle East amongst them. And one of the most important and significant things that happened in those discussions in San Remo 100 years ago was the fact that the League of Nations basically came and said that they recognize the ancestral right of the Jewish nation to the land of Palestine. And they explicitly spoke over there about both sides, about both sides of the Jordan River. It's only after the British received the mandate and that they had this whole agreement that they made with the family, with the Hashemite family, to give them and to give them the eastern side of the Jordan River. Throughout all of history, when we talked about the land of Israel, we meant both sides of the Jordan River. And when the 2.5 tribes came and they asked for Moshe if they can settle there, so yes, it was not treated exactly the same as the western side, but it definitely is officially considered to be part of the land of Israel. It's further away from the heartland. It's further away from Yerushalayim. It does have a significantly reduced halachic status to it, but it is part of the land of Israel. And it, of course, is part of the promised land, but it's also part of the historical land of Israel. The fact that we today don't speak so much about Jordan as something that is still part of the land of Israel is because it's not very politically correct, and because we have enough challenge dealing with the parts of the western side of the Jordan River. But by the way, if you look at the historical symbol of Beitar, of the Beitar movement, which is not a religious movement, it was never a religious movement, it was a secular movement. If you look at the symbol of the Beitar movement, you'll see it's the map of Israel with both sides of the Jordan. The symbol of Beitar has both sides of the Jordan as part of the map of its symbol. Okay. So let's continue. So we see Gidon. At this point, I think we would all agree that it makes sense that Gidon doesn't really have enough time to really deal with them, and he just responds to them extremely harshly. Okay, and he tells them that when we come back, not if, when we come back, you will be punished very harshly. Okay, let's continue. We are in verse 10. Now Zebach and Salmonah were at Karkor with their army of about 15,000. These were all that remained of the entire host of the Kedemites, for the slain numbered 120,000 fighting men. These are immense numbers. So let's see if we can see where they actually camped. I don't see it. I don't see the Karkor on the map. So I guess that means we probably don't really know where it is. So I guess we don't know exactly where it is, but it's somewhere in this area. Okay. Verse 11, Gidon marched up the road of the tent dwellers. By the way, we are going to lose contact in 1 minute, so everyone will just hop back right back in so we can continue. Okay, Gidon marched up the road of the tent dwellers up to east of Novach and Yagbeha, and routed the camp which was off guard. Let's see, I think Yagbeha here. Okay, we're talking right over here. You guys see it, Yagbeha? So even this is quite a distance. So he went to Sukkot, he went to Penuel asking them for food. They said no, and without being able to